Hello and welcome back to Refractions. I am Stephen Mallon, and I am so psyched about our guest this week. We have Madeline Cornell joining us. So, Madeline, hello and thank you.
Hi, how's it going?
It is going well. I don't know where you are right now, but we have got like amazing like light and temperature upstate. So I'm happy.
That sounds fabulous. I am currently at the gallery. We're in the middle of an installation, actually opening up our next show of Paula Tavermina's work, who is a photographer and a very strong photographer at that. So I'm sure we'll dive into that later.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was one of my end questions. So we'll talk about the show for sure.
Well,
Um, Yeah. So before we get to her show, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to photography?
absolutely. I guess I'll start where I am now. So I'm currently the director of Winston Wächter Fine Art. We're a gallery here in Chelsea, in New York City. We also have a space in Seattle. And we represent a variety of different artists, but we do have a very strong female photographer program that I'm very happy to share about. I started out my journey, I would say, I mean, if we go back to like high school days, I did take many photography classes. It was something I always found to be very interesting of a way to find like your voice in capturing moments outside of yourself and kind of exploring, being a little voyeuristic. So that was always, a strong interest of mine. And then, of course, I studied art history through college. And when I came to New York, my very first job in a gallery, my first full-time position was at Robert Mann Gallery, who is a renowned photography gallery that works with many respected photographers. He was a mentor to me and taught me a lot about classic photography through contemporary. And so my years there really shaped my view of the photography world, really introduced me to so many different photographers and themes that you see throughout. And then through that, I then went to ArtNet for a short time and I worked as a photography specialist there, which really kind of let me into the more secondary market focus of photography, expanding my reach in the artists that and works I could work with. And then through that, I ended up at Winston Wachter Fine Art. So it's been a mixed bag of just interest in photography on my own, working with a dealer like Robert Mann, working a little bit on the auction side, and then also seeing how a photography program can fit within a gallery that works in a variety of different mediums and how that kind of works as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Robert Mann's definitely a great gallery to start off with. It's
Absolutely.
very reputable. So, can you tell me a little bit about this secondary market and how that experience was? And because I've got, my feelings and thoughts on what it can and cannot do, I guess, to contemporary photographers' careers.
Mhm.
Would you mind talking about that?
Absolutely. I think, of course you have the mainstay artists, you have the classic photography that um, has kind of already a situated market. And then when it comes to more contemporary photographers, there was definitely when I was at ArtNet, there's a specific kind of section that we found success in. And so I think also different auction houses have different specialties with the photography that they were bringing to the market. I really enjoyed being able to work with private collectors who were big photo collectors. And as you could see what was in their collection, what they were keeping, what they were selling. And of course, that's always, a little bit of a touchy subject when it comes to the artists and in the primary market. And also it's tricky with editions too, especially if editions aren't sold out or not, how does that like sale of a secondary market piece that maybe the edition's not sold out, so someone will like buy a cheaper like it would be less expensive at auction than maybe the primary market. So you kind of have all of those factors affecting it. But as when it comes to contemporary photography, but I will say also, you know, it does drive attention to the artists and their market, and auction results are always going to have to, you know, build and try to keep up to the primary market until they can supersede them. And so, you know, I think that it's a very valid part of the art market and something that, you know, is a driving factor to kind of slingshot you maybe into a more popular, you know, have not maybe not popular, but more, maybe more attention on the works.
What are some reasons that would a collector like bring their works to the auction?
I mean, there's a variety of different reasons. You know, I was working in the auction world during 2020. So, I mean, we're talking, I started first day of the pandemic.
Wow.
It was one of the craziest moments. And so we were dealing with a lot of people that just had to liquidate. Sometimes too, you know, that's financial are a factor. So that was kind of a moment we were seeing there. But also, you know, people see these works as investments, and so they maybe want to sell something to add a different piece to their collection. You know, as tastes change, as moments change, as they change their houses, you know, like it can be a variety of different motivations in terms of, just as a museum maybe would deaccession a piece to be able to purchase, you know, 3 other, you know, contemporary pieces. If they have, you know, 5 pieces from one artist, maybe they want to diversify a little bit more. So that's a factor. You know, some clients would maybe bring it to market because, you know, they were maybe deaccessioning their collections. Especially we were seeing that with like corporate collections as well. That's always something that is a factor too, of this kind of need to deaccession to put, you know, money towards new work or other things as well.
Okay, so it's not all bad, I guess, you know, and when it goes back up.
No, it's definitely not all bad. I think there's a lot of reasons why people sell. I mean, even in the gallery world, people come back and want to sell things to buy other things, because, you know, collectors are always, you know, finding new artists that they want to support and are excited about. And sometimes there's only so much wall space or so many finances that can go towards the art collection.
Nice. So we met at the New York Photo Fair.
Yes.
Yes. How was the rest of the fair for you?
It was great. You know, it was our first time as a gallery doing a photo specific fair. So it was kind of a experiment for us. Of course, I worked at APAD, and Robert Mann has, you know, of course, does Perry Photo and a variety of different fairs. So I was familiar with, you know, the players, how it works. But as for Winston Wächter Fine Art, it was our first time, which we really enjoyed because we then got to really focus on our photographers, like Sally Gall, like Paula Tavermina. We brought Margot Walter, and we brought Deb Acek, who just released her first monograph. And then we also brought Jill Weinstock, who works in kind of a multi-medium fashion, but also includes photography in her work. And so it was a great way to reconnect with photography collectors that some I hadn't seen in quite some time, see our existing clients get really excited about a photo fair, and many showed up that were like, you know what, I've never even been to a photo fair, but it was our first time. I knew you guys were showing. And it really was exciting to them to be able to see a larger just display of photography. You know, there was great curators, you know, all of the you know, Darius Himes would stop by. I mean, I think even Chris Rock stopped by the booth. So that was really fun.
I heard about that, yeah.
He was making appearances and being super supportive and talking with the artists. So there was a good energetic vibe to the fair that I really enjoyed. And I think just introducing the gallery in that specific kind of market was super helpful to be able to showcase, you know, the program of strong female artists, photographers that we have.
Nice. So that's interesting. Like, So some of the existing collectors that you have, like that are like local to New York, still came to the fair because they were curious and wanted to support the gallery. Is that right?
Yeah, we of course we did our outreach and sent tickets, and I think it also helped. Armory was in the same building, so they were able to do the Armory show and the photo fair show. And many made a effort to stop by the booth and see the newest work.
Nice, nice. What goes into deciding which artist and which pieces you bring to a fair? Because there's a lot of pressure, right? Because you've got this
Yes.
real estate that's like 72 hours. You've got like to double the overhead at a minimum. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It is, art fairs are a huge investment for a gallery to do. It's something where we kind of view it also as, a marketing opportunity. So we can kind of think of it that way. But we always like to show really fresh new stuff, things that are just, released and that our artists are currently working on. So maybe they're familiar with their old bodies of work, but it's our first time, being able to show, what they've done in the past year. So normally it would be, at least for us as a contemporary art gallery, the newest work. And
I'm
then
gonna just hold that thought 1 second. I'm seeing
Yeah.
a low battery alert on my laptop. I just gotta plug this in.
Oh, no problem.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So it's a variety of different things. We also wanted to, especially specifically for photo fairs, give a broad overview of different artists, that also, when you put them together in a booth, did have kind of a cohesive feel to it. So with Deb's work, Deb Adchek just released her first monograph. So all of the works from that we presented in the booth were from that newest series, called All of the Colors I Am Inside. So they have themes of, exploration and nature and very specific colors that can lead to emotions and feelings and memories. But then that outdoor theme also then cycled into Sally Gall's newest work, that was focusing on the planet itself and these color fields that you can find out in nature, and these monumental landscapes and rocks and walls that she was kind of decontextualizing the space in which she was photographing. And then we also wanted to introduce Paula Tavermina's work, which is an artist that we just started working with. And so it was a great way to also introduce her just as part of our program. And then Margot Walter, we had just done a solo show with her, so we wanted to present some of the work from that show as well. So we were really trying to find a way to present not just what the artists are doing, but also what the gallery was doing. What was our recent shows, who are our new additions to the program, and things like that.
It makes a lot of sense. It's a nice way to kind of, yeah, just show it like the past and what the current programming is, and also how things are moving forward.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the fact that you just started working with Paula. How did you find her?
So I worked with her at Robert Mann Gallery, actually. She was an artist that Robert had been working with. And then recently, we decided to start working together. And so that was really exciting to bring an artist on that I was familiar with her work, really in depth, knew her really well, knew, her strong work. And she's been having a lot of exciting career opportunities as well. She just did the commercial campaign for the new Gucci fragrance. So that was just released and really exciting for her. So we felt it was the perfect time now to present a solo show of her work.
Nice. My video is frozen. 1 second. Let me see if I can figure out how to get this unfrozen. All right, it's okay. It's all about you anyway, so we'll just deal with my audio for now. So you had mentioned that the gallery has kind of a generally towards representing female photographers. Was that something that was already in the program, or is that something that you brought to the gallery?
It wasn't even specific. It just happened to be that way. You know, Christine Wächter, who's the owner of the New York gallery, and she started the gallery with Stacy Winston back in like 95. And Stacy now owns and runs the Seattle gallery. You know, they've always been huge proponents of female artists. It's something that is a stronghold in our program just across all mediums. And so I think when Christine, you know, was bringing on some of these photographers, who Rena Bass-Foreman, I believe, is like one of the first photographers that they worked with, and she was a landscape photographer. People had seen her work at Bonnie Ben Ruby at some point, and we manage the estate now because we represent her daughter Zaria Foreman, who is a fabulous artist working in pastels of kind of these beautiful, very picturesque landscapes that document climate change and the change of the earth. So I think kind of Rena being one of the earliest, you know, photographers that they were working with, you know, she's also worked with Tom Burrell before, and they recently started right before I started bringing on and working with more photography. And that included Sally Gall, who, when Julie Saul passed away, unfortunately, you know, Christine and Julie had been in conversation. And we had worked with Sally Gall's work a lot. So it was only natural for Sally to join our program. And I think from that, you know, we were able to build upon that. You know, Margot Walter, I think, has been with the gallery for, I want to say, like a decade or so. We've had 4 shows of her work. And she's a young artist who is really also kind of focused on this idea of climate change and the meaning of, you know, humans' touch on the planet. So there's also kind of this theme, I think, also within the photography that comes true. So I don't know if it was so specific to like, we're going to look for only female photographers. It just kind of happened that way. And I think it was the nature of the program of, you know, the voices and what these photographers say through their work that really stood out to Christine, to bring them on. And then, we also, Deb Atchek was a Seattle find, actually. She's based in Seattle and is working with our Seattle gallery. And that's how we got introduced to her. And so our Seattle gallery and the New York gallery will represent some of the same artists and some different artists. So with that, it kind of got brought over. And then when I joined is when Paulette joined as well.
Yeah. How is the relationship when you've got a gallery that's got 2 locations? So not all of the artists are represented in both spaces?
No, they're not. You know, we are 2 spaces and kind of 2 galleries under the umbrella of Winston Wachter Fine Art, which allows us to, you know, to have wonderful, you know, relationships on both East and West Coast. It's super collaborative. The Seattle team is amazing. The director, Jessica, there, and I are constantly in collaboration and speaking about kind of where we want things to go. But we will also have slightly different programs in the sense that I feel like the New York market and the East Coast and kind of where our clients are slightly different from Seattle and West Coast and Pacific Northwest clients. So we do try to tailor the programs to specific to kind of our, I would say, like territory regions that kind of make more sense for what we're trying to do and what our clients are looking for. You know, Seattle works with a lot of Pacific Northwest artists. which is amazing. You know, they are a stronghold there, and they really develop local artists, which is super important. I think, you know, when you have a big gallery in a city like that, to be able to foster relationships with local artists and local community. And we try to do the same thing here in New York, although I would say New York's market's a little more international, or at least, we have artists in Boston and DC and Florida. And so there's a little more of a reach in that sense. But then, of course, we also have many overlapping artists as well.
So do you find that the West Coast gallery and the collector base there is more interested in purchasing local or local-ish work? Or what are some of the themes that the collector base there that's separating from the East Coast?
I think there's always kind of an interest in local artists in any community. I would even say in New York, we have international clients come over all the time, and they're looking at New York and US artists because, you're trying to explore and learn about the place that you're going to these galleries too. So I do think on the West Coast and in Seattle, there is definitely specific interest in supporting local artists and the local community. They also work with a lot of LA galleries, LA artists as well. And of course, across the board, but they do have a very strong program of Pacific Northwest artists. So I think collectors go to them for that material.
Nice. And how involved are you, and how involved is the gallery with determining like sizes and editions with the photographers?
Oh, that is an interesting question.
Thank you.
It really depends on the artist. There are some artists that have very specific visions for the sizes, for sure. Just because, when you're looking at an image or a series as a whole, as an artist, I'm sure you're picturing, how you see these being viewed and experienced. So size, I think, comes a little bit more from the artist. It's just, how big they can print, will these images hold up at a certain size, which normally with contemporary and digital photography is not so much of an issue anymore. That's more classic photography in terms of how big you can print. But there is a conversation, I would say, just because we know, what clients are looking for, what is, in terms, I would say, a more sellable size. So there's conversations to be had, but I would say it definitely comes more from the artist with that. With editions, that's always a larger question as well, because I would say normally, younger artists will have larger editions, and it's a lower price point. And then, of course, as an artist builds their career, it seems to be a trend that the editions will be tightened a little bit. The prices get higher as an artist grows and grows and grows. So that's something that sometimes gets edited or changed just as an artist progresses into their career. But I would say, for the most part, I do have those conversations when an artist is releasing a new series about, how many sizes will be offered, what's the edition, what are the pricing that we're going to do, and then what do those sizes look like. But then there's some artists, Paula, for example, who has kept, the same dimensions and sizes and editions and everything for her work for the most part. And so she came in already prepared with the ledger and ready to go. And so I think it just depends also where the artist is in their career.
That makes sense. Do you feel like there's a sweet spot, like number wise, like 15, 30? Like where do you like it? If the artist comes to you and is like, what do you think? What would you tell them?
I always think tighter editions, the better. I think the thing that we see with photography, and I saw this at the fair too, is with editions, there's not so much of an urgency to purchase. You know, collectors will mill around, they'll look at all the pieces, they'll think about it, they'll come back because they know that there's always that most likely, I mean, depending on the work in the series, there'll be an edition available. Whether or not the pricing is tiered and they get at the base price versus, you know, a higher price, that's always something to consider. But if you have these larger editions, it really doesn't put a lot of pressure. So as a dealer's point of view, I like to keep a tighter edition to, you know, it makes it a little more not precious, but like it will drive the market to make faster decisions sometimes. Because I do see that a lot versus a painting, there's one painting. So you either want it or you may not get it. And so, I don't know, between like 3, 5, 3, 5, 7, I feel like is the sweet spot. For the smaller prints, you know, I can see being 10 or 15, but once you start getting larger than that, I think, you know, it kind of waters down the editions.
It's really, yeah, it's like, it's the precious and pressure
Yeah.
at the same time, right? To like push them is like, because you don't want them sitting there. It's like, oh yeah, but there's going to be more available, so I don't have to make a decision now or next month, you know. But you want to have that fear of missing out element, you know, just to like push them a little bit to the edge. Like, yeah, I got to commit now, because otherwise. And that's, I mean, and you mentioned the pricing tier. That was another, I think, pricing structure. Like, do most of your artists immediately go up after the first print, or are they in groups? Like, how do you handle it, or how do they handle it? How do you like it?
It depends on, I mean, how big the edition is. So, I mean, there are some artists that don't tier their works. And I find that a little bit easier to navigate, especially if, you know, photographers end up working with many galleries at a time. And so it sometimes gets tricky in terms of making sure you're pricing everything correctly all of the time. But I do think it drives their market a little bit. I don't like too many price jumps. I find it to be confusing for clients, and frustrating sometimes if it's like every print's a different price. It just isn't so clear to clients all of the time. So I think there's like a sweet spot of, you know, keeping the base price for this first couple editions. And then as you get to maybe the last couple ones, a pricing jump. And then of course, if there's any APs, those should always be at a higher price point. But I think, you know, there's a happy medium. Like for an edition of 7, I would only jump the price like 3 times at max, because you don't want to constantly be changing the price on people. I think gets frustrating, but you also want to say like, look, there is an increased demand in this work, you know, the edition's running out, and clearly, you know, there's a lot of effort and work put on by the artist. So, you know, you should be able to drive your market.
I had a gallery and artist recently. They had a solo show, and he was telling me that, yeah, they did the price increase immediately. Like after print number 1, the next one is more expensive. And I thought it's a really good way to put some pressure on people to make up your mind. But at the same time, it's a little bit of a logistical, you know, I don't want to say nightmare, but it's more work to constantly having to be going back to double check which print it is, and then therefore it is that this price because this print is number 3 and this print is number 7, and there's a, you know, potentially a drastic change in pricing even if it's the same size or different sizes.
And, you know, prices get sent out and pieces get quoted, and, you know, a lot of our collectors, you know, take time and they're, you know, building a collection, and so they may circle back in 2 months, and you know, I want to make sure that, you know, they get the opportunity to collect and purchase, but I don't mind the urgency too. So it's such a fine line between, you know, pushing the artist market, growing them in their career and their work, and then also making it accessible for collectors to purchase and make it feel like it's streamlined and very also like transparent, I think is the biggest thing of like, why you just quoted me this price, why now is it this price?
Yeah.
Of course,
It looks like switch and bait a little bit if you're constantly
yeah,
changing the price on them.
yeah, and of course, veteran like photography collectors will all know this, and it's, you know, very standard in the industry. But also, you know, we want to make it so new collectors understand and feel like they're what they're getting and how they're collecting makes, you know, sense to them as well. So, you know, I'm all for, of course, you know, price, you know, tiering in work, but I think doing it in a right and very streamlined way and not so complicated is better.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
What do you look for in photographers? Like, what are some things that you've noticed in the past that have just like, pushed it over the edge with the bodies of work?
Oh, I mean, there's many things. You know, I think we live in an interesting time where we're digesting so many images all of the time. I mean, I grew up in the era of like social media being released and Instagram, and now it's all over the place and people taking pictures constantly. Everyone's a photographer in that sense. And then when you look at photography in the fine art market and photographers that are really developing their own voice, finding unique voices within that, I think is where I find the most surprises. You know, like when someone can go to, especially when if you're talking about like landscape photography, and someone goes to a site that I'm sure a bazillion people have gone to, and they can produce an image and a photograph that is so unique to their voice and what, you know, they're trying to say, and unique perspective, and how they crop it, and how like their kind of moment in time in that space is that if it's something I've never seen before, that's really impressive to me, you know, because I think, you know, you as a photographer, you have a really hard job of trying to find those unique moments in the everyday space that is your unique take on it, because there's so many images out there. So I think that is some, if that's clear of what I would be looking for. I mean, of course, everyone's looking for a unique take on things, but and then I would also say, like with street photography or other like photographers that are using portraits, the kind of emotions that they can bring out of their subjects, where you feel like you can, if you look at, like I would say like Ming Smith is a big, I'm a big fan of that work, where you feel like invested in the portrait and the people that are in the scenes, where you feel like the photographer was able to bring to life kind of the energy of that person, where you look at the photograph and you can feel like what the next movement would have been if it's a street scene, or like if you look in their eyes and like they had a very unique like emotion of either sadness or melancholy or joy and happiness. And so I think how a photographer works with their subjects and how they can actually capture that one moment of like a glisten in the eye, that would be something that really I think brings a photograph to life.
It's true, right? Like that emotional like connection when you're seeing, there is something about the expression of those portraits of certain photographers in that moment in time that they've captured, where it resonates when you see it. And it's really subjective also, it's just like but there's a certain consistency that you realize that they keep getting that with their people, their location, the subject that they're choosing, that like over and over and again they're making that that connectivity, just the energy that they're able to capture.
Yeah, and I think that's just, it's kind of like I hate to say like a spark, but it's what it is. And I think viewers can really feel that in certain works, and that is like the defining line. And some, as you said, it's very subjective. But I also feel like if you know about photography, if you know nothing about artwork, you can feel the difference between a very static kind of blah subject and one that's been really captured in the correct light. And I think that just comes from, you know, that very like small moment that an artist can capture.
You mentioned earlier also about the galleries and the artists working with multiple galleries. How do your artists like separate or sort out the work? Do they give the gallery like certain prints, like you have 1, 2, and 3? And do they give you the physical prints, or are those the ones that are kind of like reserved for the individual galleries? Like, how is that managed?
Oh, many ways. For the most part, with contemporary photography, artists print to order. You know, it doesn't financially make, I mean, printing a large photograph is extremely costly for an artist to do. And you also have to deal with, of course, storing them in the correct manner and just taking care of them. They can easily get damaged. So it doesn't financially or storage or really make sense to print a whole edition, and then keep it and then send it to galleries. So normally, and for the most part, images or editions are not reserved for specific galleries, at least with the artists that I've worked with, where anyone can just sell a print from the edition. And so prints don't have to be sold technically. Also, like, they wouldn't be editioned until they're sold. So let's say, you know, there's an edition of 5, one dealer sells one, and then another dealer sells one. The artist would print 2 and just edition 1 of 5 to whoever sold it first. And I always get asked the question of like, does it matter what edition you get? And in the long run, no, because most things are sometimes even sold out of order, where like an artist would frame mount an edition, a piece for an exhibition, and it could be edition 5 of 7, but you know, 1 and 2 and 3 haven't even sold yet. So an edition, it doesn't even matter. It would just be whichever sells first, that's the price of it. Edition 1 of 5 is priced at this. So there's not really exclusive editions, I would say, to each gallery, because they can be sold out of edition order.
That makes sense. Yeah. So it's just like, it's first come, first serve, you know?
It's first come, first serve. The galleries have access to, you, like the artists will have a ledger, so that you can go and check to see what is the next edition to sell and what's the price at, and then you would sell that. So we of course have framed pieces in our inventory. Most of them are not editioned, of course, until they sell, because someone could sell, another gallery could sell the edition, and then we would edition the print that we have as the higher edition. So it really is just, yeah, first come, first serve. Everyone has access to it if you are a representative of that artist. The thing that it comes down to is usually territories. So like, we share artists with galleries in Boston and Florida and California and Seattle. And so an artist would be very kind of diligent in any inquiries that come to them of like where they're coming from. If it's a New York client, it would come to us. If it's a Boston client, it would go to the Boston gallery. So I think it's more comes to kind of territories in that sense of, you know, who's showing the work, like who's having the exhibitions, who's bringing them to the art fair. Like for us, when we went to photo fairs, we would be able to have first kind of opportunity to include that artist in our fair booth, because it's a New York fair versus like a Boston gallery.
Wait, so it lost me a tiny bit in there. So the territory, no, just I was following along for I was thinking about the territory, and you know, you mentioned like Boston and Miami. So like if there's an artist that has a gallery in Miami, but you're doing a fair in Miami,
that gallery that gallery, we would have to like ask that gallery, or the artist would probably ask their Miami gallery if it's okay if we included them in our art fair booth. Because technically like if they've cultivated a whole relationship with all these collectors in Miami of that photographer's work, and then we as a New York gallery go down there and show the artist in our booth, and all of these Miami collectors go and just buy the work from us instead of that Miami gallery, even though they've done all of the cultivation of promoting that artist down there. It's a little like unfair, you would think, because, you know, they've taken all that time to market and promote and have all these collectors follow this artist, and then we go down there and sell. So it's normally a conversation. It's normally like the artist would be like, hey, my New York gallery is going to do a fair in Miami. Are you planning on taking me to a fair, or is it fine if like we could show them in the booth? And so it's normally very cordial and easy, and but it's like it's good to have conversations just so everyone feels like all of the work that they've put into it, including the artists, you know, makes sense.
Are the artists sharing commissions between the galleries sometimes, anytime, or
What do you mean sharing commissions?
like if a sale goes through, would like a referral commission go back? Is there artists that like you represent as like the lead gallery, and then if it sells in Boston, you're still getting a percentage?
That would only happen if like you're the primary representative of an artist. And I would say most time for top, like if let's say we represent an artist, we're the only representation of that artist, and they want to include a piece in a group show, it would kind of be like a loan from the gallery, and therefore it'd be like shared commission, but not normally if it's like, of course, if they both represent the artist, we would not get a cut of that.
You wouldn't get it. Okay,
No.
good to hear.
No, we want all of our artists. I think it's always, I think, good to have, you know, multiple representation as a photographer, because it allows, and it's good for everyone because you really get so much, you know, more promotion and support for an artist. And so it's always good to have multiple galleries that are showing your work and allowing to promote it, so that way, you know, collectors are hearing more about the artist in all parts of the world.
Definitely. When is your next fair?
I am not sure. We are still working. We're still figuring out our 2024 fair schedule. We are kind of going through a variety of different options. But of course, we'll consider photo fairs again. I believe they will be doing it again next year with the Armory show. So we just have to kind of see, you know, what's in the marketing budget for fairs and how many we want to do.
Yeah.
Because we also, of course, just do like we did Intersect Aspen this year, which was super beautiful, obviously, to go and visit. I wasn't mad about that business trip for sure. And that's a wonderful fair that does a variety of different mediums. So, and we've done Untitled before, we've done Chicago. So I think, you know, we kind of prep for that. I just, you know, we collab with our Seattle gallery for the fair. So we kind of have to see where their heads are at too.
Nice. So a couple of possibilities on the tables. Yeah, we'll see.
Absolutely.
See where you land. And we're getting close to the end, but you were saying that your next show that opening is Paula's her still life work, right?
Paula Tavermina's work, yes. I'm very, very excited. It's going to be her first solo show with us. And we've already received an amazing response from our collectors in support of her work. And so the plan is that it will open up on November 16th and then run through the new year. And we're presenting a variety of her different series, you know, since it's the first time that we're introducing her work to our clients and our program. We thought it would make sense to kind of do an overview look of the different works that she's done. focused more on the floral and fondant kind of work, and then of course including a large selection of the newest work that she's worked on for the past couple of years.
Nice. I'm looking forward to seeing it. I'm not going to be able to make it to the opening because I gotta go to a college financial aid meeting that night.
Okay.
But I will definitely swing by the gallery to see the show.
Yeah, we're open Tuesday through Saturday, 10 to 6. So anyone is more than welcome to stop in and see the show. Always come up, say hi, ask us any questions. We love to talk to anyone who wants to talk about the work and wants to learn more about it. And yeah, I'm really excited. I think we're doing a variety of sizes, some really large prints of her work, which will be exciting because normally you see her work in 48 inches or less, but we're doing 2 large 52 by 52 prints that are fabulous. So it will be kind of a wonderful selection to see in the space, and maybe people want to come get Christmas gifts.
Absolutely. Well, I will let you get back to the install. Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. And
yeah, absolutely. It was fun. Thank you so much.
Definitely appreciate it. It was really insightful. I hope everyone was able to get some information. I definitely learned a few things. So thank you.
Good.
I'm
Good.
sorry I lost my video feed. Like I said, I lost power briefly to the laptop. I think it hit my power, and so it killed the video feed off of my camera. But yeah, so thank you very much. Thank you, B&H, again for hosting. Thank you, Madeline, for joining us. And I will see you all back here in a couple of weeks with Naomi Huth at the end of the month.
Thank you.
All right, bye.